The alarms screamed through the colony, shaking the walls like the roar of a distant storm. Lights flickered, casting long shadows across the narrow corridors. Commander Rylan rushed through the command center, his boots clanging against the metal floor. "Report!" he shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. Lieutenant Mara, her face pale, glanced at the screen. "Sir, the Council's fleet, it's gone rogue. They're opening fire on our outer defenses." Rylan froze. His mind raced. Impossible. We trusted them. The Galactic Council promised protection. Mara swallowed hard. It's happening anyway. Our shields won't hold much longer. Explosions rocked the base, smoke filled the hallways, and alarms wailed like wild beasts. Civilians screamed in panic, running in every direction. Rylan grabbed a communicator. "Evacuate the population to the inner bunkers. Every second counts." In the observation deck, the colony's surface stretched out beneath them. Ships that were once allies were now turning, firing at the very humans they had sworn to protect. Why? Why would they do this? Rylan whispered. Anger and disbelief twisting together inside him, a shadow appeared behind him. It was Council. Representative Alric, his expression unreadable. "Commander," Alric said quietly, "I tried to warn you, but orders are final. The Council believes humanity cannot be trusted with the galaxy's secrets." Rylan's eyes narrowed. "Betrayed by the very people we depended on." He clenched his fists. "You're siding with them." Alric hesitated, then shook his head. "Not all of us, but I cannot fight openly. You must survive, Rylan. You must gather your people and strike back." Before Rylan could respond, another explosion shook the room. A section of the ceiling collapsed, sending sparks raining down. Rylan grabbed Mara's arm. "Move, now!" They ran through smoke-filled corridors, dodging debris, as alarms continued their relentless wail. The colony's central hub was under siege, and every second counted. Outside, human ships tried desperately to form a defense, but the Council's superior technology was crushing them. In a small, hidden hangar, Rylan found a handful of ships still operational. "We can't win this battle," he said, voice tight. "But we can survive if we get off this planet and regroup." Mara nodded. "Where will we go?" Rylan stared at the blinking star charts. "To the asteroid belt beyond Sector 9. There's a hidden base there. We'll rebuild, and we'll fight back." As they prepared to launch, an urgent message flashed on the comms. The voice of a young technician, panicked and trembling, broke through. "Sir, they've breached the civilian sector. People are trapped." Rylan's jaw tightened. "Then we save them. Every life counts. No one is left behind." The small fleet lifted off, weaving through chaos. Laser fire streaked past them, and ships exploded in bright, fiery flashes. Mara handled the navigation, sweat running down her face. "Rylan, they're following us. They know where we're heading." Rylan's hand hovered over the controls. "Then we'll need a diversion." He pressed a sequence on the console, releasing several small drones that created false targets. The enemy fleet hesitated, firing at illusions while the humans slipped away. Hours later, they arrived at the hidden asteroid base. The massive rock hung in the void like a silent guardian, its surface dotted with hidden hangars and reinforced shelters. Humans poured out of the ships, exhausted but alive. Rylan walked through the gathered survivors. Faces full of fear stared back at him. "Listen," he said, raising his voice so everyone could hear. "We were betrayed. The Council turned on us, but we are not defeated. Not now, not ever. We will rise. And when we do, the galaxy will remember the strength of humanity." Mara approached him quietly. "Commander, what's the first step?" Rylan looked out at the stars beyond the asteroid. "First, we rebuild, we train, we prepare, and then—" He paused, a fierce fire lighting his eyes. "We strike back. At night, in the quiet moments when the survivors tried to rest, Ryland couldn't sleep. He stood at the observation window, watching the Council's fleet retreating into the darkness, plotting their next move. His mind replayed the attack, every betrayal, every scream. He clenched his fists. A small voice interrupted his thoughts. "Sir, do you think we can really win?" He turned to see Mara, exhaustion in her eyes. Ryland smiled, faint but determined. "We don't have a choice. Humanity doesn't give up. Not now. Not ever. We will rise, and they will regret underestimating us." In the darkness of the asteroid belt, the human survivors began to organize. Engineers tinkered with salvaged ships, scientists worked on new weapons, and soldiers trained relentlessly. Every day they grew stronger, sharper, faster, and all the while the memory of betrayal burned in their hearts, a reminder that the Council had awakened something it could never control. Weeks passed, and whispers spread through the base. Rumors of a vengeance fleet, crafted from human ingenuity and desperation, began to take shape. Even the Council's spies, who had infiltrated the base, reported back of humans who would not bow, humans who were ready to fight back. One evening, as Rylan oversaw a weapons test, Mara approached him again. "Sir, the Council thinks we are hiding, weak, broken. They have no idea what we're building." Ryland's eyes gleamed. "Let them think that. Underestimation is our greatest weapon. When the time comes, we will remind them that humans never stay down." Outside, the stars twinkled coldly, a silent witness to the brewing storm. Humanity had been betrayed, but from the ashes of defeat, a new force was rising. A force that would not stop until justice or vengeance had been served. And somewhere, deep in the void, the Council had begun to feel the first tremors of fear. The cold silence of the asteroid base was broken only by the hum of machines working tirelessly through the night. Commander Ryland stood before the war room's massive map, his finger tracing the coordinates where the Council's forces had struck. Each red mark on the screen represented destruction, betrayal, and pain. But now it also represented the beginning of something else. Revenge. Mara entered, her boots light against the metal floor. She knew Rylan had barely slept in days, his eyes bloodshot but determined. "Commander, the engineers are ready. They've finished the prototypes. Our first fleet is ready for testing." Rylan nodded but didn't look up from the map. "And the supplies?" "Almost all accounted for, but—" Mara hesitated. "I'm not sure we have enough manpower. The Council's fleet is huge. We have to be strategic. We don't have a choice," Ryland said quietly. "We must make them fear us. The galaxy will know that humans are not to be underestimated." The door to the room opened again, and a voice called out, "Sir, we've got trouble." It was Sergeant Tane, one of Ryland's most trusted officers. "Scanners show a small enemy fleet approaching our location. We think they're a scouting party." Ryland turned sharply, his eyes narrowing. "How far are they?" "About 20 minutes out." Ryland's mind raced. The Council's fleet was vast, and this scouting party was just the beginning. The humans on the asteroid base had to be ready, and they had to move fast. "Prepare the ships for launch. We won't wait for them to get closer. It's time to show them what we've been building." The hum of engines filled the asteroid base as the small fleet prepared for its first real test. 5 ships, designed by the best engineers, gleamed under the dim lights. They were smaller than the enemy ships, but faster, more agile. The humans' greatest advantage wasn't in size. It was in their ability to adapt, to think on their feet. Mara, now in her flight suit, stood by the main control panel. "Commander, the first ship is ready for launch. Should we send all of them at once?" "No," Ryland said, his voice steady. "We need to strike fast and confuse them. We'll send the first ship out as a decoy. When the enemy pursues, we'll hit them from behind." Mara nodded. "Understood." Ryland's heart pounded in his chest as he stood in the command room, watching the ship take off. The enemy was coming. The time for hiding was over. It was time to fight back. The first ship, A sleek, black vessel zipped through space, moving faster than the enemy had anticipated. The enemy fleet, a group of smaller warships, immediately locked onto it. As Rylan had predicted, they followed without hesitation, desperate to capture or destroy the intruder. On the command deck of the ship, the pilot, Lieutenant Core, grinned. "They're following us, sir. It's working." "Stay on course." Rylan's voice crackled through the comms. "When they're far enough, get ready to turn back. We need to hit them hard." The enemy ships followed, thinking they had caught the small, desperate human vessel. But what they didn't realize was that they were walking straight into a trap. Rylan's hand tightened on the console as the second wave of human ships, hidden in the shadows of nearby asteroids, moved into position. As the first enemy ship came into range, they attacked, lasers blasting from all directions. The enemy fleet was caught off guard, caught in a crossfire they didn't expect. "Now!" Rylan shouted over the comms. The small human ships swooped down, firing with precision, their speed making it nearly impossible for the larger enemy ships to respond. It was a short but fierce battle. Explosions ripped through the darkness of space as enemy ships were torn apart. But even as they struck, Rylan knew this wasn't the final blow. The Council would retaliate. "Commander," Mara's voice interrupted. "His thoughts. We've got one ship left. The enemy is retreating." Rylan exhaled slowly, watching the last enemy ship limp away. "They'll regroup. They'll come for us again. But we've made our point." Mara looked at him, her eyes filled with a mix of relief and concern. "Do you think we can hold out much longer?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he turned to look at the repaired ships in the hangar, the people working tirelessly to improve them. "We can't hide forever, Mara. We need to make them pay for what they did. We need to strike before they can strike us again." Days passed, and the small human fleet continued to grow stronger. New ships were repaired, new weapons tested and tactics perfected. But Rylan knew they couldn't stay on the asteroid forever. The Council was watching them closely, and sooner or later they would come with everything they had. Then, one night, a surprising message came through their communications. "It's a Council transmission," Tane reported, a look of confusion on his face. "But it's not encrypted like the others. It's from someone inside." Rylan rushed to the comms room. The face on the screen was one he didn't expect to see, Alric, the Council representative, who had warned him before the attack. "Rylan," Alric said, his voice low and filled with regret. "I tried to stop it. I couldn't. The Council, they're corrupt. They won't stop. You were right, but there's still hope. If you strike now, you might catch them off guard. I'll help you. I have access to their defense systems." Rylan stood still, trying to make sense of the message. He had never trusted Alric, but there was no time to question it. "How can we trust you?" "I don't expect you to, but you don't have much time. They're sending a fleet to crush you. If you're quick, you might just have a chance." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving Rylan to process what he had just heard. Mara, who had been standing silently by his side, spoke first. "Do you think he's telling the truth?" Rylan glanced at her. "I don't know, but we don't have time to second guess. We strike first, now." The crew worked quickly to prepare the fleet. Their target was a major Council base located deep in enemy territory. It was a risk, but it was the only chance they had to even the odds. As the fleet prepared to leave the asteroid base, Rylan looked out at the stars, his heart heavy with the weight of what was to come. But one thing was certain. Humanity was no longer hiding. They were coming for the Council, and nothing would stop them. The hidden asteroid base was quiet, but tension hung thick in the air. Commander Rylan stood over the tactical table, staring at the star map projected in front of him. Each red dot represented Council forces, each white dot a human ship ready for action. The fleet had grown since the last battle, but Rylan knew numbers alone wouldn't win this war. Strategy, timing, and secrecy would be their greatest weapons. Mara approached, her hands full of data pads. "Commander, the engineers finished analyzing the Council's recent patrol routes. There are patterns, they have weak points, but we have to move fast before they change them." Rylan ran a hand through his hair, tension etched on his face. "Show me." She tapped a few points on the map. "Here, here, and here. These supply corridors are lightly defended. If we strike at one of them, we can disrupt their operations and gather resources for our fleet." "Good," Rylan said. "We'll hit the middle corridor first. Small enough to manage, big enough to send a message." Tane, ever the skeptic, leaned against the wall. "And if it's a trap? The Council isn't stupid. They've already sent entire fleets to crush us before." Rylan's eyes met his. "Then we use what they don't expect. Speed, precision, and unpredictability. That's the human advantage." Hours later, the fleet quietly slipped out of the asteroid base, hidden by the shadows of space debris. Mara piloted one of the lead ships, moving with a mixture of fear and determination. "Commander, sensors are picking up activity ahead. Nothing heavy, but there are patrols." Rylan nodded, scanning the readouts. "Keep it quiet. Minimal engagement. We don't want the whole Council fleet on us yet." As they approached the supply corridor, a Council freighter appeared, its massive hull glinting under distant starlight. "There it is," Rylan said, voice tense. "Take positions." The human ships fanned out, taking hidden angles. Laser cannons hummed softly, ready to fire at the perfect moment. The freighter moved slowly, unaware of the human fleet stalking it from the shadows. Suddenly, the freighter's sensors picked up the humans. "Contact!" an enemy voice shouted. "Prepare for combat!" Rylan's heart pounded. "Now!" The fleet erupted from their hiding spots, attacking with precision. The freighter's shields flared under the human lasers, sparks flying across its surface. Explosions shook the vessel as human fighters disabled its engines and weapons. Direct. "Hit on the engines!" Mara shouted. "They're slowing down!" Tane's ship fired a final volley, and the freighter erupted in a controlled explosion, leaving only debris drifting silently in the void. The human fleet cheered quietly. Victory, but careful not to attract attention. Back on the asteroid base, Rylan debriefed the crew. "We have their resources and a message has been sent, but the Council will respond. And they won't wait long." Mara frowned. "Commander, there's something else." The freighter's logs contained a transmission. "From inside the Council itself. Someone's feeding information to us." Rylan's eyes narrowed. "Ulrich?" "Yes," Mara said, "but there's more. It mentions another hidden fleet, larger than ours, stationed near the outer rim. The Council is preparing a full-scale attack against us." Rylan ran a hand over the back of his neck. "Then we must strike first, gather every pilot, every ship. If we move fast, we can hit their outer fleet before they hit us, but we must be precise. No mistakes." Days of planning followed. Humans worked tirelessly, refining tactics, testing weapons, and training relentlessly. Every member of the fleet knew the risk, every officer understood the stakes, and every human believed, deep in their hearts, that this war was far from over. On the eve of the mission, Rylan called the senior officers together. "Tomorrow, we make our move. We strike their outer fleet, disrupt their plans, and show them that humanity will not be crushed. This is more than survival. It's a message. We fight for our future, for every life the Council tried to destroy." Mara nodded, her eyes filled with determination. "We're ready, Commander. The fleet is ready." Rylan placed a hand on the table, staring at the map. "Then let's remind the Council what humans can do." The next day, the human fleet emerged from the shadows of a nearby nebula. The Council's outer fleet loomed ahead, massive ships, lined in perfect formation. They expected a small, weak force, easy to destroy. They had no idea what was waiting. Rylan's fleet moved with precision, targeting supply vessels first to cripple the Council's support. Mara's ship led the attack, weaving between enemy fire, lasers slicing through space. "Target the engines," she shouted over the comms. "Disable them, don't destroy yet." The Council ships faltered, caught off guard by the humans' speed and tactics. One by one, they were disabled, leaving the humans in control of the battlefield. Then a warning flashed on the tactical screen. "Commander, sensors show multiple ships moving at high speed. Unknown reinforcements." Rylan gritted his teeth. "They've been hiding more ships. Split the fleet, half engage, half flank from behind. We adapt, we survive, we fight." Explosions lit up the darkness as human ships executed the new plan, their maneuverability giving them the advantage. The Council's fleet was massive, but rigid, slow and unprepared for humans who could think and move faster. Amid the battle, Mara's voice cut through the comms, tense but controlled. "Commander, we've found a Council communications hub. If we disable it, their reinforcements will be blind." Rylan's jaw tightened. "Do it. Take it out." Minutes later, a targeted strike destroyed the hub, sending a cascade of sparks into the void. The remaining Council ships hesitated, disorganized and confused. Victory was within reach. After hours of tense combat, the human fleet returned to the asteroid base, battered but victorious. Rylan addressed the crew, pride and exhaustion mixing in his voice. "We've shown the Council that humanity cannot be underestimated. We've won today, but the war is far from over. They will retaliate, they will try again. But we are ready." Mara approached him quietly. "Commander, what's next? We've disrupted them. But how do we end this?" Rylan gazed out into the void, the stars reflecting in his eyes. "We learn, we grow, and we strike smarter. Every battle brings us closer to justice, and one day we'll remind the Council why humans fight, and why we never stay down." In the silent corridors of the asteroid base, the crew worked on repairs and improvements, their determination unbroken. And somewhere, deep in the Council's command, alarms rang out as they realized the humans were no longer weak prey. They were predators, cunning, relentless, and rising. The silence of deep space stretched endlessly as Commander Rylan's fleet approached the Council's main defensive line. The massive ships gleamed under distant stars, shields humming faintly, weapons ready to fire. The humans had never faced a force this large. Even with all their preparation, doubt lingered. Could they truly challenge the Council's might? Mara, seated at the navigation console, broke the tension. "Commander, sensors show hundreds of ships. It's a full battle fleet. They know we're coming." Rylan's jaw tightened. "Then we make them pay for underestimating us. Stay sharp. Every ship, every pilot must move as one." Tane, standing nearby, glanced at the massive formation. "This is insane. They'll crush us in minutes if we make a single mistake." Rylan met his gaze. "Then we don't make mistakes. Trust the plan." The fleet split into two groups, the first to engage the Council directly, the second hidden behind an asteroid field, ready to strike from the flanks. The first wave approached slowly, deliberately. Council ships detected them and fired, bright streaks of energy tearing through the darkness. "Shields holding," Mara reported, "but they're stronger than we expected." Rylan's voice was steady, firm. "Keep moving, don't let them pin us down." The first human ships darted between enemy fire, targeting weak points, small yet precise attacks. Explosions lit up the void as ships were disabled one by one. But the Council's fleet adjusted quickly, sending reinforcements to surround the humans. "Commander," Tane shouted, urgency in his voice. "They're closing in from all sides. We're outnumbered." Rylan's eyes flicked to the asteroid. "Field. Now." From the shadows, the hidden group of human ships emerged, striking the flanks of the Council fleet. The sudden attack caused chaos among the enemy, shields flaring, weapons misfiring, ships colliding. The humans moved with speed and precision the Council did not anticipate. Mara's voice cut through the comms. "We've disabled their central weapon platform. Commander, This is our chance. Rylan gritted his teeth. Target the command ship. If we take it out, the rest will retreat. The fleet focused fire on the massive Council flagship. Lasers, missiles and plasma bolts slammed against its hull. The ship shuddered, sparks flying across its surface. Explosions rippled along the deck. The flagship tried to flee, but human fighters blocked its escape route. "Almost there," Mara shouted. "One more hit!" A final volley struck the command bridge, and the flagship erupted in a massive explosion, sending debris scattering across space. The remaining Council ships faltered, disorganized and confused. The humans had won a critical victory. Rylan exhaled, relief mixing with exhaustion. "Hold formation. We're not out of danger yet." They'll regroup. As the fleet began to pull back, an urgent transmission flashed across the tactical console. "Commander, it's Alric. He says there's something you need to see." Rylan activated the comms. Alric's face appeared pale and serious. "Rylan, there's a deeper secret the Council hasn't revealed. They've been experimenting with a new weapon, something that could destroy entire colonies in minutes. If they deploy it, your fleet could be wiped out." Rylan's eyes narrowed. "Where is it?" "On one of their hidden stations near Sector 12. I can give you access codes, but it's heavily guarded. You'll have to act fast." Mara leaned over, her brow furrowed. "Commander, it's a trap, but if we don't act, lives will be lost. What do we do?" Rylan stared into the void, the weight of responsibility heavy on his shoulders. "We do what humans do best. We strike when they least expect it. Prepare the fleet. We're going to that station. Every ship ready, every pilot focused. This isn't just about victory anymore. It's about survival." Hours later, the fleet approached the hidden station, cloaked among asteroids and debris. The station was enormous, bristling with weapons and defensive shields. Enemy patrols circled its perimeter, unaware of the humans watching from nearby. "Commander," Mara whispered, "we'll need a diversion to get close. Their sensors are too strong for a direct approach." Rylan smiled faintly. "We'll give them a show they'll never forget." Small, fast human ships darted out from the shadows, firing lasers and drawing the enemy's attention. Explosions flared as patrol ships pursued them. Meanwhile, the main fleet moved undetected, slipping past defenses, approaching the core of the station. "Almost there," Mara muttered, her hands steady on the controls. "We can do this!" Suddenly, alarms blared across the station. "Commander, sensors show reinforcements arriving. They know we're here!" Rylan's jaw clenched. "Focus! Stick to the plan! We hit the core now." The human ships unleashed a coordinated strike, targeting the station's main power source. Explosions rippled through its interior, lights flickering as systems failed. The station shuddered violently, debris floating into space. One of the human ships veered dangerously close to the collapsing structure. "Mara, we need extraction. Now!" She nodded. "All ships, pull back, now!" The fleet retreated just as the station erupted into a brilliant explosion, sending shockwaves through space. Silence followed. The void, once again, calm. The humans had struck a decisive blow, but Rylan knew this was only the beginning. Back on the asteroid base, the fleet returned, battered but alive. Rylan addressed his crew, pride and determination in his voice. "Today, we've proven something important. We've faced the Council's might and survived. We've struck at their heart and we've won. But the war is far from over. We must grow stronger, faster and smarter. The Council will come for us again. And when they do, we will. Be ready." Mara approached quietly. "Commander, do you think we can win this war?" Rylan gazed at the stars, fire and determination in his eyes. "Win? Mara, we will show the galaxy that humanity never stays down. They betrayed us, tried to crush us, but they've only made us stronger. And soon, we will rise higher than they ever imagined." Outside the asteroid base, the human ships underwent repairs, the crew working tirelessly. Somewhere deep in the Council's command, alarms blared as leaders realized the humans had grown beyond their expectations. The tide of battle was shifting, and the galaxy would never be the same. The asteroid base was no longer quiet. The hum of engines and the clanging of metal echoed through every corridor as humans prepared for the next phase of war. The Vengeance fleet was almost complete. Dozens of sleek new ships lined the hangars, each built with stolen technology and human innovation. Soldiers trained tirelessly, engineers worked without rest, and commanders reviewed every detail of the next mission. Humanity was no longer running. They were preparing to take control. Commander. Rylan stood in the command center, his eyes scanning a massive star map. Red markers showed Council-controlled space, and blue markers represented human resistance cells. For the first time, the blue dots were spreading. Humanity was growing stronger. Mara entered, carrying a datapad. "We've made contact with 3 more colonies. They're ready to join us. They're sending ships and supplies." Rylan's eyes lit up. "Good. The more we gather, the stronger we become. We're not just a fleet anymore. We're a force." Tane leaned against the wall, his expression wary. "A force, yes, but the Council is still bigger. We've hurt them, but they're not beaten. They're angry now, Rylan. They'll strike, back harder than ever." "They will," Rylan said calmly. "That's why we hit them first. Harder, smarter." Days turned into weeks as the asteroid base became a bustling hub of activity. New pilots arrived daily, bringing stories of Council oppression and betrayal. Some came from distant colonies that had barely survived Council raids. Others were mercenaries who had seen enough bloodshed to know humanity's fight was righteous. Mara walked alongside Rylan through the hangar, where engineers worked on a massive warship. "This is the largest one yet," she said proudly. "We call it the Spear of Dawn. It's got enough firepower to take on 3 Council cruisers at once." Rylan ran his hand along the ship's reinforced hull. "Good, we'll need it." Suddenly, alarms blared. A voice came over the comms. "Commander, we've detected a small enemy fleet approaching the outer perimeter." Tane was already on the move. "A scouting party? Or bait?" Rylan muttered. "Battle stations, everyone to their ships." Minutes later, the Vengeance fleet roared to life. Human ships streaked out of the asteroid base, weapons ready. The enemy fleet appeared on sensors, a small group of Council ships, just as Rylan suspected. "Too small," Mara said, frowning. "They know we're here. This is a trap." "Stay sharp," Rylan ordered. "We don't fire until we know their game." The Council ships advanced, firing a few warning shots. Then, out of nowhere, dozens of enemy signatures appeared behind them. A massive ambush. "They've surrounded us!" Tane shouted over the comms. "They were waiting for us to come out." "Stay calm," Rylan said firmly. "Execute formation. Delta 7. We break their line." The human fleet moved with incredible precision, ships weaving and spinning as they dodged enemy fire. The Spear of Dawn led the charge, its cannons unleashing devastating blasts that tore through enemy shields. Explosions lit up the void as both sides clashed in a furious battle. Mara's voice came through the comms. "We can't win a straight fight, Commander. We need another plan." Rylan's mind raced. Then it hit him. "Target their flagship. If we take it out, their fleet will scatter." "But it's heavily guarded," Tane protested. "Then we break through. All ships, focus fire on the flagship." The Vengeance fleet surged forward, dodging heavy fire as they made their way toward the massive Council flagship. The enemy poured everything they had into stopping them. But human ships were faster, more agile, and more unpredictable. "Shields at 40%, Mara shouted, sweat dripping down her face. "Keep going," Rylan barked. "We're almost there." The Spear of Dawn lined up its cannons, charging for a massive strike. Enemy fighters swarmed the ship, but the smaller human vessels created a shield, blasting them out of the sky. "Firing!" the weapons officer yelled. A blinding beam of energy slammed into the flagship's hull, ripping through its defenses. The massive ship shuddered under the impact, explosions bursting along its sides. The enemy fleet faltered, their coordination breaking down. "They're retreating!" Tane shouted, his voice full of disbelief. "We did it!" "Not yet," Ryland said, his tone calm but sharp. "Take out their engines. No one escapes." The battle raged on, but the tide had turned. The Vengeance fleet pressed their advantage, destroying enemy ships one by one. When the smoke cleared, the once mighty Council fleet was in ruins, and the flagship was nothing more than drifting wreckage. Cheers erupted across the human comm channels. For the first time, they hadn't just survived, they had crushed a major Council force. Back on the asteroid base, celebrations erupted, but Rylan remained focused. In the command center, he studied the battle data with Mara and Tane. "This was a test," Rylan said quietly. "They sent this fleet to see how strong we are. Now they know." Mara nodded grimly. "They'll come back with something bigger, something worse." Tane crossed his arms. "So what's the plan? Keep running? Keep striking small targets?" Ryland turned, his eyes sharp with determination. "No. We're done running. We're done hiding. It's time to unite every human colony, every ship, every fighter. We're going to form one unstoppable force, and then we'll bring the war to their doorstep." Mara smiled faintly. "The Vengeance fleet," Ryland nodded. "Yes, and when we move, the galaxy will remember." In the following days, transmissions went out across the galaxy, calling for every human stronghold to join the fight. Resistance cells, smugglers, and even old enemies began pledging support. The Council had awakened something it couldn't control. In a private moment, Ryland stood by the observation window, watching engineers repair damaged ships. Mara joined him, her voice soft. "You think we can really win, don't you?" Ryland didn't hesitate. "We're already winning. Every day we survive, every ship we build, every life we save. We're proving we can't be broken." She smiled. "The Council won't see us coming." "They will," Ryland said, his gaze fixed on the stars. "And by the time they do, it'll be too late." Far away, in the Council's high command, panic spread as reports of their defeat reached the leaders. For the first time in centuries, they were afraid. The humans they had betrayed were no longer a scattered people. They were an army, a storm gathering strength, ready to strike. The stars outside the massive warship shimmered like cold diamonds as the Vengeance fleet prepared for its greatest battle. Hundreds of ships floated in formation, their dark hulls glowing faintly with power. For months, humanity had been hunted, betrayed and underestimated. Now they were no longer prey. They were the storm, ready to strike. Commander Ryland stood at the command table, surrounded by holographic projections of the Council's stronghold, a massive station the size of a small moon, defended by fleets larger than anything humanity had ever faced. His officers waited quietly for his orders. "This is it," Ryland said, his voice steady but heavy with the weight of what was coming. "We end this war today. The Council thought they could break us. They thought betrayal would wipe us out, but we've proven them wrong. This is our moment." Mara, calm but pale, glanced at the screen. "Their defenses are layered. We'll need to break through 3 blockade lines before we even reach the station." Tane gave a grim laugh. "Sounds like a good challenge." Ryland looked around the room, meeting the eyes of every officer. "Remember, this isn't just revenge. This is survival. Every shot we fire, every ship we save, it all matters. We fight for every human who can't be here today. And when we win, the galaxy will finally see who we are." The fleet surged forward, engines flaring as they approached enemy space. The first blockade appeared on sensors, rows of heavy cruisers, shields shimmering, weapons ready. Blockade in range, Mara reported. Form up, Rylan ordered. Evasive maneuvers. Hit them fast, hit them hard. The human fleet spread into tight formations, weaving between enemy fire. The Spear of Dawn led the charge, its cannons thundering as it tore through a council cruiser in a single strike. Smaller ships darted around the giants, crippling engines and weapons before moving on to the next target. "Left flank holding," Tane shouted over the comms. "But we're taking heavy fire." "Push through," Rylan barked. "We don't stop here." The blockade crumbled under the relentless assault. In minutes, the first wave of enemy ships was reduced to drifting wreckage, but there was no time to celebrate. Ahead, the second blockade waited, even larger and better prepared. As the fleet advanced, enemy reinforcements poured in from all sides. The battle became chaos. Lasers streaked through the darkness, explosions lit up space like fireworks, and ships twisted and turned in desperate maneuvers. "Commander, they're trying to box us in," Mara shouted, sweat running down her face. Rylan's mind raced. "Break into groups. Hit their command ships first. We need to scatter their formation." Human fighters zipped between massive enemy vessels, firing with deadly precision. The Spear of Dawn unleashed another devastating blast, crippling an entire section of the blockade. Suddenly, enemy ships faltered, unsure of where to focus their fire. "This is our chance," Tane yelled. "We've got a hole in their line. Take it," Rylan ordered. The fleet charged forward, slipping through the opening and leaving the second blockade in flames. The path to the council station was open, but as they drew closer, something new appeared on sensors. "Commander," Mara's voice was trembling, "there's a new signature, a massive one." On the screen, a colossal ship appeared, dwarfing even the Spear of Dawn. It was sleek, dark, and unlike any council ship they had seen before. "They built a superweapon," Tane said, his voice tight. "That's what Alric warned us about." The monstrous ship moved into position, its cannons glowing ominously. A single shot fired, slicing through space and vaporizing an entire human cruiser in seconds. Gasps filled the command center. "Evasive maneuvers," Rylan barked. "We can't fight that head-on." But Mara's eyes lit up with an idea. "Commander, look at its power core. It's exposed when it charges. If we time it right, we can destroy it." Rylan nodded. "Then that's what we do. All ships, focus fire on that core when it charges. Fighters, create a diversion." The battle turned into a deadly game of cat and mouse. Every time the massive ship charged its weapon, the human fleet darted in, striking its exposed core. The enemy vessel fired again and again, destroying ships with terrifying ease, but with each strike it took damage. "Core exposed," Mara shouted. "Fire everything," Rylan roared. The Spear of Dawn unleashed a barrage of plasma cannons, joined by dozens of other ships. The giant vessel's core exploded in a blinding flash, tearing the ship apart from the inside. Debris scattered through the battlefield as cheers erupted across human comm channels. "Their weapon is down," Tane shouted, his voice triumphant. Then, "It's time," Rylan said. "All ships, target the station." The Council's mighty stronghold loomed ahead, its defenses crumbling as the Vengeance fleet pressed forward. Explosions rippled along its surface as human fighters swarmed in, disabling turrets and shield generators. Inside, Council leaders scrambled in panic, their confidence shattered. "Commander, we've breached their defenses," Mara called out. "Boarding teams, move in," Rylan ordered. "Take control of their command center. This ends today." In moments, human soldiers stormed the station, cutting through guards and forcing the council to surrender. Rylan himself stepped into the council's grand chamber, now filled with chaos and fear. One council leader glared at him. "You think this victory makes you strong? The galaxy will never follow humans." Rylan's voice was calm but fierce. We don't want followers. We want justice, and from now on humanity will decide its own future. Hours later, the battlefield was quiet. The once mighty Council Station floated in human control, and the remnants of their fleet scattered into the void. For the first time in history, humanity was not just free, they were a power to be feared. In the observation deck of the Spear of Dawn, Ryland stood with Mara and Tane, looking out over the stars. The war wasn't truly over. Rebuilding would take years, but the threat of extinction was gone. "We did it," Mara whispered, her voice full of wonder. "No," Ryland said softly. "We started something bigger than us. The galaxy will change now, and we'll make sure it changes for the better." Tane smirked. "What if the Council tries again?" Ryland turned, his eyes hard but calm. "Then they'll remember what happened today. Humanity doesn't bow. Humanity rises." Outside, the stars shone brighter than ever. The Vengeance Fleet, once a desperate hope, was now the strongest force in the galaxy. The Council's betrayal had created something unstoppable, a united humanity, forged in fire, ready to face whatever came next.